When I was in grade 8, I had this big orange backpack, and on that backpack, I had scrawled in Sharpie all my favorite bands. We got your Korns, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, Blink-182, and somewhere on there was Sum 41. And that's kind of strange because they were very, very small in comparison to these other bands on this backpack. But the crazy thing was, when I was in grade 8, Sum 41, band that made it to that backpack, came to my hometown to play inside of a barn. So I got to go to this show as a little boy to go see Sum 41 play in a literal barn. Hey ladies, Dan Frampton here, and today we're going to go through all of Sum 41's records to determine when they were born, when they died, and if they were born again, like Shawn Michaels in the early 2000s. And we're going to start right here with this record, Half Hour of Power. Now, in the overall canon of Sum 41, this thing is just considered an EP, but to me, this is the first official release because this is where they hit my radar, and this is where they actually made the biggest impression on me as a music listener. And going back and listening to this thing, it's very clear that it's just a response to how popular Blink-182 got when they put out Enema of the State. But right here on this record, we have a little bit of a gallopy, riffy time going on, inspired kind of by Iron Maiden, and that gives them this very unique twist on the pop-punk trend that was going around. THT is this hardcore cut that I absolutely love, and this thing comes in at 26 minutes. It's a breeze of a listen, it's super fun, it's super catchy, and it lays down all the elements that would become the full-form Sum 41 in a couple years. This thing was snotty and bratty in its own regard, but it really wasn't the top of the genre. Sure, it was fun, but my overall verdict is just it was a good little listen. A pretty decent start for a little band from Ajax, Ontario, Canada. And then they'd go on to write and record the album that would blow them up. In 2001, they would release All Killer, No Filler. And spoiler alert, there's a little bit of filler on this thing. But there's also those huge hits that made them fucking household names at the time, like Fat Lip, In Too Deep, and Motivation. Those are all on the same record. But as strong as those singles were, there's a lot of weak points in this record. It definitely feels like corporate pop punk, but you can still see the soul and personality in there. It's definitely still a Sum 41 record because of those metallic elements that they bring into the mix. Their closer, Pain for Pleasure, demonstrates why they're so much better as a metal band. And a little piece of trivia, they also performed as a comedy band called Pain for Pleasure, where they would come out and just do parody versions of metal songs. Then the band would reach full form when they put out Does This Look Infected in 2002. Hell Song is a very good opener, such a catchy little bop. Their songwriting is the best songwriting out of any record here. They got a lot of good backup vocals and harmonies, but they're still leaning on those tropes so hard. All those pop punk tropes, all those like metal tropes. But they put all those elements together for their best and most meticulous group of songs yet. Everything feels very deliberate on this powerhouse of an album, and the guitar playing is much better than all their peers and other pop punk bands at the time. It is the most corporate and record label sounding record that they did put out so far, but there's still that snotty, bratty attitude underneath it all that makes it a Sum 41 vibe. My verdict on this thing is it's not that bad at all. But in 2004, they decided to shake it up a bit on their record, Chuck. They were like, no, we're not just like a straight up pop punk band anymore. We want to do this melodic hardcore thing. Now, as an enjoyer of melodic hardcore, I wish that they didn't take this step. Because when I heard that they were doing it, I was like, man, that's going to be sick. This is very exciting. But then when I listen to it, it's just boring and lifeless, and they're just going through the motions. They are going a little bit more metallic, but not in the way that they're actually really, really good at. They're good at riffing. They're good at galloping. You know, that whole Iron Maiden aesthetic. And if they really did all that times 10 with this pop punk attitude, you got yourself a winning recipe. But that's not the road that they chose. They chose to go down this safer road because like post-hardcore was very, very poppin' at the time, and they thought that this was the smart business decision to make, but they shouldn't have done that because they were a much better like 80s glam metal, hair metal type thing. Get the gongs and the organs and like the atmosphere going. They could have had something really special, but they didn't. There is so much filler on this record, and the acoustic cuts slow it down to a crawl. My verdict of this thing is Sum 41 is on life support. not quite dead, but they need help. 3 years would pass and their guitar player, who held this whole group together, left. His name was Dave, and this is the first record here without Dave, called Underclass Hero. This thing feels forced. This thing feels fake, boring, and bloated. It's uninspired and just an amalgamation of cliches and tropes. It clocks in at 49 minutes, almost an hour's worth of Sum 41 material in one go. That is way too much. So on July 18th, 2007, when they released this thing, that was the day Sum 41 died. And while they were rolling around in the grave without Dave, they put out Screaming Bloody Murder. And goddamn, this thing just sounds like a ripoff of AFI meets Crazy Town. Throw in a little Buck Cherry for good measure. Like, this record starts off by completely ripping off AFI. So it's 2011 now. These guys are so well past their prime. Like, pop punk is the thing of the past. Melodic hardcore is a thing of the past. My verdict on Screaming Bloody Murder is now they're dead and decaying. But in 2016, some evil genius scientist digs up the bloody remains of Sum 41 and tries to reanimate it by making them go completely metal. This is their biggest departure from pop punk yet, but they're not playing the metal they're actually good at. This thing sucks. When Sum 41 tries to do a ballad, it is the saddest thing in the world. And not because it's a sad ballad, because it's pathetic. It's pretty bad from front to back, but there's actually glimmers of greatness in there because Dave is back on guitar, and it's so great to hear those Dave riffs that are kind of gluing everything together. So I have a little bit of hope for this band. Order in Decline is also where we're gonna find Sum 41 in decline yet again. This is where they're dead forever. There was no redemption for Sum 41 at this point. Yeah, that's right. A Sum 41 record came out in 2019. I bet nobody here even knows about that, but they did, and it sucks ass. But the album imagery here looks like they're going down that Iron Maiden path. But I'm here to tell you, they didn't do that. They got Dave, this riff machine going, and they're still not doing it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe they don't want to do it because, like, that stuff is like a thing of the past or whatever. But newsflash, Sum 41, everything you're doing is a thing of the past. You might as well do what you're good at. And again, this thing is littered with Sum 41 ballads that suck. My verdict on this thing is just please stay dead, Sum 41. But you know what? They're not gonna stay dead. They're gonna put out another record. It's been announced that Heaven and Hell is gonna be the title of the next project from Sum 41. And at this point, what can we expect from this group of zombies? Just want to show you one picture here. Just drink that in. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Do you listen to Sum 41? Let me know. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell if you're cool as hell. And until my next upload, watch another upload.